Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. This is me, this is I, this is she, this is her, this is whomever. It is Rosie Rosette 2020 pal. I swear, this is only going to be a 3-minute video. I saw this James Baldwin little film clip on Instagram, and I'm not exactly sure, Black Tour or something like that. Anyway, it was a little film of James Baldwin going to San Francisco in 1964. And it was talking about how racist San Francisco was towards black people. This is 1964. Now, I think in 1964, I would say, I'm assuming that the population of blacks were, I would say 15%, maybe 15-20%. That's, I'm just guessing. Now it's like 4%. Okay. So, it was just ironic that nothing really has changed. And I think they were in Hunters Point. They were in Hunters Point. My mom was born in Hunters Point, even though she won't ever own up to it, whatever she claims she was from. She was born in Lakeview, but she wasn't. Anyway, my father was born in Fillmore. And then both sets of grandparents moved to Lakeview in San Francisco. But yeah. Um, it was just weird that, 55 years later, things have gotten worse in San Francisco. There's not really a lot of employment for blacks. Most of the blacks who are in San Francisco are either in Potrero Hill Projects, the TL, Hunters Point, or Sunnydale. There's a spickle in Fillmore, but I mean not in the flats. Like, I mean, Fillmore used to be mostly not. Yeah, there used to be a lot of blacks in Fillmore. Not anymore. Most of the blacks in Fillmore are in low income housing. So the low income housing in Fillmore, low income housing in Potrero Hill, low income housing in Hunters Point, low income housing in Sunnydale. I mean, there are a few black people left who own homes in San Francisco. My mother's one of them, but not many. My uncle also owns a home in San Francisco. But I think London, the mayor, I think she's in an apartment. Like, it's almost impossible for, I'm not even saying a younger generation, because hell, I'm 51. There's no more black presence of home ownership in San Francisco. I would say of the 4% or 6% of the people, of black people who live in San Francisco, 1% own property. Because the ones that did own, like my grandparents, as soon as they died, the kids sold the property. They sold it. It happened on my father's side and my mother's side. Well, actually, my uncle sold my grandmother's house even before she died. And then when my other grandmother died, they it took them about a year or two to sell the house. My sister was gonna buy it, and then my uncle, did some old shicey stuff or whatever, and she was like, nah. But yeah, it's just a mess. But it's just so sad what happened to San Francisco. San Francisco was a paradise. I'm telling you, actually, I never saw a shooting, or damn near, I don't even think I saw a fight growing up. I never saw a shooting. Never saw a shooting. Never saw a shooting. But it was like a safe fairyland for kids. I lived in Lakeview. Now, what happened in Hunters Point or Sunnydale Projects or the Geneva Towers or the Pink Palace? See, you don't know about the Geneva Towers or the Pink Palace or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Um, you know, you never went to Mission District at night. I was never on the Mission District, in the Mission at nighttime. That was strictly for Mexicans. It was like Little Mexico, you know. Yeah, it's just changed. It's gentrified, and a lot of the the uniqueness of San Francisco. You'd have the hippies and the punk rockers with the tall hair, different colors on Haight Street. Castro would be the gays. Fillmore would, be the blacks in Fillmore were different. They were a little more worldlier. They kind of, because Fillmore was a mixture of whites and blacks and everything else. In Lakeview, where I grew up, it was mostly blacks. It was mostly blacks. But there wasn't like blacks in projects. We weren't ghetto blacks. It was just mostly blacks. It was just our own world. Hunters Point, it was just different. It was different. Different parts. Sunnydale, it was different. It was all different. But it's totally not the same anymore. Like, when I was growing up, we didn't have there was a lot of protests. Like every day they would protest in front of City Hall. It's very liberal. That's what I want to say. It's very liberal. It was very accepting of um, gays and lesbians. Like actually, and I've said this in other videos, before San Francisco turned tech, it was ran by gays and lesbians. You would never, living in San Francisco, ever say anything derogatory about that community, ever. Because they ran it. You wouldn't have a job. That's one thing. Coming from San Francisco, I know never say anything about that community. That I'm just raised up. Not that I care, but I'm just I'm very accepting of that. But getting back to James Baldwin, it's funny that that video talked about how racist it was. What, 55 years ago or 56 years ago, but to come back, you would think in 2021 that things would have improved, but it's gotten worse. Although, yes, we do have a black mayor, but London Breed is mixed with black and white. But although, we have a mixed first woman mayor, well, no, first black woman mayor, it's still racist. It's still racist, and there's not a lot of opportunities for black. Listen, I belong to a lot of travel groups, and they all say when they go to San Francisco, where's all the black people? And I direct them. Well, there's some in Hunters Point. There's some in Sunnydale. There are black people. There's some in the TL. There are, now don't get me wrong, there are black people in San Francisco. And then one person said, well, that's the hood. I was like, well, I mean, she asked where the black people. I told her. She doesn't, I don't know how you gonna ask for black people and then don't not expect to be some hood. That's just like me going to Detroit and be like, okay, well, where's black people? Okay, well, you can go to the east side of Detroit. You can see a whole bunch of them. Oh, well, that's it. Well, listen, you asked where the black people. You go to Harlem in New York. There's some black people. I mean, yeah, I guess it is black people, but I don't know. Okay, let me just tell you this. I know I'm going everywhere, but I remember when I went to New York by myself for the first time, by myself. Um, This is right after 9/11, a year after 9/11. I think I told you guys this before, but I stayed at the not the the Embassy Suites, which was like 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center. So it was real close, a couple blocks down from the World Trade Center. A year later, I could still smell the ashes. Anyway, there's no black people around here. I mean, there's no black people on Wall Street. Whatever. And I was just like, well, God, what's in New York? I want to see black people, whatever. So I wanted to get my nails done. So I took the train out to Brooklyn. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. What I tell you, I went from Europe to Africa. I never in my life seen so many black people in my life. I came up from that subway system. I could tell that. Is it late? Because they're hitting the walls. I know they ain't hitting the walls. It's 9:38. So I could tell from the train ride that the train was going from all white, and then, we go to stops. And then it'll be, more black, more black, more black. Okay. So when I went up the escalator, I was like, oh, I thought I was in Africa. I'm not lying to you. I've never, everybody was black. Wall Street, everybody's white or, whatever. They ain't everybody black. When I went up those escalators there and everybody was white, I mean, everybody was black, went, it was all black people. Like, all, I was like, oh my, oh, it was like a culture shock. Like, I had never been anywhere in my life where there was all black people. Now, this was 9/11. I don't know what year. What year is 9/11? 2000? I don't know. Whenever. Oh my God, that was an experience. San Francisco's never been like that. Now, you know, you can't go any. Well, I mean, Hunters Point, where there's all black. I mean, you will see black people, but it's not like it used to be. It's not like I said, Potrero Hill was all black. Hunters Point was all black. Um, Sunnydale was all black. Fillmore, you know, Pink Palace, some of the projects or whatever. Is it Acorn? No, not Acorn. Hayes Valley projects. You know what I'm saying? But it's not like that. San Francisco is mostly white and Chinese now, and there's not a lot of, you know, there's generational poverty in San Francisco. There's a lot of people who been in the projects, gonna stay in the projects, ain't going nowhere but the projects. They, you know, generations or whatever. And I just don't understand how the same thing that was going on in 1964 is the same thing that's going on in 2021. Mostly everybody that I know who I grew up in San Francisco, they're gone. They're going to Vallejo, Antioch, Pittsburgh, Stockton, yeah, Modesto. No one who grew up in San Francisco is really there. Who's really there? Far few. Far few. I go to my old neighborhood and it's all Chinese. All Chinese. All those houses that we had in Lakeville was mostly all black. Every time we sold one of those houses, Chinese people purchased them. You know, they don't let go. They don't sell their property. Yeah. Well, that's it. It's just sad. But it's just very interesting to see that documentary of James Baldwin. He's such an elegant curator. I'm going to have to read it. I have one of his books, but I've never read it. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later.